I blame John Langford. It was his 2002 all-star compilation, The Executioner's Last Songs, which first got me interested in murder ballads, and I've been obsessed with the damn things ever since. Langford, a founder member of 1970s UK punk legends the Mekons, has been working with Chicago's Bloodshot Records ever since moving to that city in 1991. Spurred on by Steve Earle, he organised the Executioner's Last Songs project to help fund a group calling for the abolition of the death penalty in Illinois. The idea, he told me, was to use death songs against the death penalty, and that meant including as many of America's classic murder ballads as possible. The list of artists Langford recruited for this magnificent album is a who's who of Bloodshot's trademark insurgent country sound. The disc includes Steve Earle's own version of Tom Dooley, Knoxville Girl performed by the Handsome Family's Brett Sparks, Nico Case singing Poor Ellen Smith, and a dozen more tracks beside. I was hooked from the day I bought it, and the more I listened to these songs, the more fascinated I became by the questions they prompted. Was Earle's terrifying Tom Dooley really the same man I'd heard the Kingston Trio warbling about back in the 1960s? What made the Knoxville Girl's companion fly so suddenly into that inexplicable rage? And why did so many of the men in these songs find it so difficult to distinguish between true love and murder? Fast forward now to November 2003 and to the legendary San Francisco bookstore City Lights. I was mooching around in the basement's music section there one afternoon when I stumbled on a copy of Cecil Brown's book Stagger Lee Shot Billy, an investigation of the real 1895 St. Louis killing which inspired Stagger Lee's ballad. Brown's book showed me that many of the killings inspiring these songs were recent enough to research in the newspaper archives, a thought which had never occurred to me before. I'd been a jobbing journalist for over 20 years by that point, so I could see very clearly how he'd gone about putting the book together. Somewhere at the back of my brain, a rusty cog began to turn. I began collecting other books on murder ballads too, some tackling just a single song, others aiming for an overview of the whole genre. The trouble was that most of these fell into one of two equally disappointing categories. On the one hand, there were the books produced by academics. These were carefully researched and reliable enough, but written in such a dry style that they drained all life from the subject. It's not easy to take a tale of chart-topping music and sadistic murder and somehow make it dull, but these lads managed it. The second pile of books I was accumulating were written by rock journalists. You couldn't fault the lively style of these volumes, but the problem was you couldn't believe a word they said either. Almost all of them blithely mixed the facts about their chosen cases with any old bit of rumour or myth they happened to like the sound of. By abandoning any attempt to distinguish truth from fiction, they ensured they produced an entertaining read, but I wanted something that got its facts right too. The wheels in my mind were spinning faster now. If I couldn't find the books I wanted to read about murder ballads, then punk's DIY ethos dictated I must write them myself. I had enough passion for the subject to put in the necessary hours. I had the journalistic experience to combine proper research with a readable style, and thanks to the internet, I had a platform to get all this stuff out there. If I wasn't the right guy to do this, then who was? So I launched a website. Planet Slave made its debut in 2009, with my murder ballad essays leading the site's content. The breakthrough had come when I realised that the way to write these essays was to intertwine the story of the murder itself with the story of its ballad's development and treatment down the years. Both elements, the true crime story and the song it inspired, had to be given equal weight and allowed to converse with each other as the essay wound on. I knew also that each piece must be allowed to stretch to its natural length, something which pretty well ruled out pitching them as magazine articles. There was no point in researching a song's inspiration and history as fully as I'd begun to do if I then had to leave out half the most interesting material just to keep the length down. Each essay, I decided, would be a one-stop shop, offering all you needed to know about that particular song. The word count could look after itself. Whenever the opportunity for a trip to the US arose, I used it to explore these songs' home cities. While others endured weeks on a sunny beach, I was visiting the murder scenes, searching through old paper court transcripts or interviewing local historians. Planet Slade began to build a following on both sides of the Atlantic. I started to hear from all sorts of people who clearly found these songs just as fascinating as I did, and most were quick to say how much they liked my approach to covering them. The site's traffic figures climbed from a meagre 18,000 visits in its first year to nearly 10 times that number in 2014. This needs to be a book, I thought. And now it is one. When you've completed the 8 chapters here, my bet is that you'll have fallen just as firmly under these songs' spell as I did back in 2002. Soon you'll find yourself compelled to start telling your friends all about them. And if my own experience is anything to go by, you'll get a fair few wary glances in return. But don't blame me for that. Oh, no. Blame John Langford.
Upon her bending knees for mercy, she did cry.